All right, Chris, here we are. We're episode 34 of the High Octane Dads podcast. We're getting back at it. Doing the bi-weekly releases is definitely helping, I think, as far as our schedules go. But yeah,
Yeah,
you
we've
ready to
been
get
pretty.
started?
Yeah.
Cool. What were you going to say?
Well, we both have been pretty busy the last week or two.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a lot here lately for sure.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've been on the road 2 days this week, 3 days this week. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so on our front, just on the family front and being busy, my daughter had high school graduation this week, so that is behind us. I am success. We're what 2/3 of the way to
Yeah.
having three high school graduates in the household, so we're doing our part, I guess.
Yeah. I should have one next year. Then I have
Yeah.
3 more to go.
Yeah, I got another one right behind her next year, and then we were talking about that, like next year my youngest will be fifth grade, so we got a ways to go for him. So he'll kind of have a like what a single or only child life there for a little while is what it'll probably
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
Assuming the older ones ever move out. I don't know that they'll ever be able to afford to the way things are
Yeah.
going.
No lie. I mean, shit's wild. Everything is just expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I know grown folks that have been in their careers for years and can't buy a house right now. I can't imagine what it's gonna be like for these kids when they come up and it's time to try to move out on their own, I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah. I mean, save as much money as you can while you can before you start putting yourself in major debt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my daughter, we talked a lot about the college she wanted to go to. She had some friends going to a bigger college in the area, and it was like, you can do that, or you can go, where I went to college, which at the time was a state college. Now it's a university. And it's like, you can go there and do, like I did, and you can come out of college debt free, right? And you don't have all that debt to worry about. And then not to mention like the other college required, they live on campus for the first year. And if you live on campus, you have to have like a meal plan through the college. And like next thing you know, what you're paying every semester, already the tuition was at least double where she's going. But then also, you have living expenses, you have food, I mean, it's just a lot. And I was like, understand maybe the fear of missing out of going, not going to the bigger school or whatever, but it's like that degree, I've never had anybody look up where my degree came from, you know, just that I had it and that I had the skills needed, and then I've preached to my kids. I remember when I was in college, really a lot of like micro stuff back then was like, there was this stigma forever that like you had to go to college, that the trades were not worth pursuing, that if you didn't have a degree, you weren't going to make anything of your life. And it was like the biggest lie I think that we were fed, to be perfectly honest, not to go too deep right here early on, but it really was. So many people went to college just to get a degree and they got useless degrees that are never going to serve
Oh,
them
yeah.
in their life. And now they have a ton of debt and they can't get a job and they're mad. And like, in a way, like I
Right.
get why they're mad because they were kind of lied to.
Well, we were having that discussion today. Me and one of my coworkers, we were driving back and he was talking about, somebody that was in his family that got a degree and it was just kind of one of those useless degrees. And he said, but I guess depending on what kind of job you're looking for, like he said, there is a lot of jobs that really don't care what kind of degree you have as long as you have a degree. And like,
To an
not all, but
extent, I get
right.
it. I will say the one thing that I always give, I don't bash colleges. You come away from college, with a pretty well-rounded, education. You've done some science, you've done some, English and world history studies, that sort of things, literature. And I do think that, there was value in that. I enjoyed my time in college and I don't discredit that at all. And going into the IT field back then, you had to have a degree, right? But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like there's merits, but there was ways to get that education without going through
Absolutely.
everything they did and racking up the
So
debt.
I like this. I like this topic. We're going to stay on this for a little while because I've got
All right,
a
well, here
lot
we
of
go.
input that I feel on this. Yeah. So, I mean, when I was in school, I remember middle school, that was the big thing they were preaching. When you go to high school, you've got to do X, Y, Z, and you've got to go for an advanced diploma. So you graduate with more credits. And that way you can go to college. If you don't get an advanced diploma, you can't go to college. It's fucking wrong. That's what they preach to everybody. And so people like me, I was an idiot. I don't do well in a classroom setting. I've got to be up doing something. But like, as far as testing, I did pretty well. Like, but in a classroom, my grades were awful. But I took all the stuff, everything I needed to do an advanced diploma. But when I got to Algebra 2 Trig, I couldn't get through it.
Trig
And
kicked my ass, dude.
so I ended up getting graduating with more credits than I needed for our standard diploma, but not enough for an advanced. Still went to college. Ended up getting a full ride in like an automotive tech program. And so it was not, it was more of like a trade program, but still, like I had to go do my first year of classes, like doing English and CPR and like math and like a composition class, a bunch of shit like that. And like I ended up starting my second year and was in the automotive program, and it just really wasn't what I wanted to do. And
And now look at you.
well, if I could do it all again, I would have gone into the our Valley Votech and done a trade school. For me, that would have been the best option. I wish, but at the time, at that age, I really didn't think about this type of stuff. Like I like cars and I wanted to work on cars, but then I kind of was like, well, I was interested in working on cars or doing body work, but at the same time, I've always kind of had this mentality where I love cars, cars are my thing, but I don't necessarily want to have my career be being a mechanic because I kind of do it as just something that I
It's for
enjoy.
you.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily I enjoy it because cars suck. They suck to work on. It's just and there's always something stupid going on. I'm fighting shit with my Caprice right now. It's the ignition key stuck in it. It's low voltage, and it's just a nightmare. But anyway, uh, but I've never wanted to have like a career in it, and I learned that pretty early on. So then I got out of the program, and I should have just finished out and got like a basic business degree or something, and figured out classes. So I had something, but I didn't. Um, and it would help me in some ways. But if I could go back, I would go and do something at a Valley Votech or a vocational school. And for me, now at this age, I would really be interested. I was thinking some sort of like the industrial maintenance programs there for a long time, but in my area, we have a lot of manufacturing, and I came from manufacturing at my previous job, and it's got its perks. But to be honest, I don't think I would want to be a maintenance tech in a. We're good. I saw how a lot of the things went on behind the scenes and in a lot of those manufacturing facilities with maintenance. And I just don't know if I would want to do that because a lot of times you're in these crazy hours where everyone else is off and you've got to be there. And
Yeah,
but
because you're handling things that can't be done until the machines are down or you've got you're not running anything. Yeah, that
right,
makes sense.
but I'm kind of like really wish I think I say welding, but welding's really hard for your health. I'm really kind of would have wished I would have gotten even any of them really some sort of machining. Machining is kind of what I've been interested in lately, watching a lot of stuff for those.
Yeah, that's what my brother-in-law does.
And that would be something awesome. But like most places, or you got to have some sort of paperwork or you're starting out. And like at me, not saying you couldn't do it because we're not really old. And I've thought about it, but it's just when I have 4 young kids and I'm busy
Man, see,
constantly.
so that's a whole other topic because like I've told my son, and both of my sons and my daughter as well, because she when she first was talking about what her major was going to be, it was all, she wanted to do something with uh like music therapy or something like it. And it's not that that's, not a noble thing or a good thing. And she loves music. She's a phenomenal singer. She's done chorus for years and does plays and different things and like I said, she from a musical perspective she's an amazing singer and no doubt that she could go and do something great with that. But then when we really kind of dug into it and it was like, hey, you know I want to go and do this thing. I said, well, why? Like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what why you want to do that thing, because I don't want her to feel pressured into something. And she's like, well, I'd really love to do something with music, but maybe not music therapy, but like you can't make any money in it. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, because everybody told me when I went into school, like, oh, if you go into computers, you go into IT, you're going to make a ton of money, right? Well, by the time I got out of college, every other person that I'd been in college with had been told that.
Yeah.
And,
The
I
market is
joke
saturated.
yeah, I joked like we're kinda the trades or, facilities folks of the tech world, right? Like you've got a lot of guys doing really amazing things in tech, and then you've got the folks who are just, we're out here keeping things running, right? And without what a lot of IT guys do nowadays, nothing happens, right? Like, I mean, business stops without those
Yeah.
services. Um, and so, there's so many people that are doing it. And I was like, I've loved photography since I was, going to the races with my dad, and I had the old Pentax camera, and it have always, back in the film days. And I didn't do it for a lot of years, but I absolutely love it. And it's like if somebody had told me in my younger 20s when the risk was lower that you could have a career in doing something that you loved, you're going to have to work at it. But if you become the best at something or you become great at something, that you can go and market those services and you can make money and you don't have to sit in a 9 to 5. If somebody had told me that, and really, there had been some examples of that, I could have followed, I absolutely, might would have went that route. And I'm trying to tell my kids, think about something that you're not going to hate doing for 40 years or 30, 35 years, whatever it is, right? And I'm not saying I hate my job, but it's a 9 to 5 and I'm punching somebody else's clock, and I'm not, you know, I'm not building something for myself. But like you
Right.
said, when I was looking into the digital marketing stuff a while ago, and when I started when I started the side business back then, it was like that's what I wanted to do, and I'd always loved to. But like to go to another company and try to do that, you're right. I'm going to go back to a 40, $50,000 entry level position because I have nothing on my resume that says I know how to go and do that thing. And when you have kids and a mortgage and a car payment, or, well, we all drive shit boxes. We don't have car payments, but when you have a mortgage
Right. But
and
yeah.
kids, and a grocery bill, like you can't afford to take a step backward. Everybody says, "Oh, take the leap. It's the best thing I ever did." It's like,
Yeah.
and when you get forced to do it,
Yeah.
maybe you
That's
do.
different.
And you're like, all right, well, this other thing didn't work out. So yeah, I'm happy that it went down, but there was definitely a dark period there where you were like, what was I thinking? Right. And it's hard to
So,
walk away from a steady check and health insurance and everything else.
well, and that's what I did. I mean, to be honest, I took a decent pay cut to go to basically my 9 to 5. And now, as far as benefits, they're way better. Basically, I left where I had almost 18 years of service, and I've got basically the same amount of time off as far as given time to me, vacation time to use, starting off for this new job right away, basically. And it's 99% of the time guaranteed work Monday through Friday only. And, my schedule's pretty much set, and I kind of have the flexibility where, like, hey, if I need to kind of come in a little bit later, I can. If I need to leave early, I'll just come in a little bit early and I can leave. If I got to step out for something during lunch for an hour, it's not really a big deal. I make up my time. It's not a problem. The insurance is great. And for me, like I said, it's completely out of my wheelhouse though. But one part of the job I'm doing where I go out and I'll do inspections and whatnot and talk to people, I love it. I would do that all day long, going and seeing stuff. I can figure things out, explain stuff to people. But then I have like 70% of the job is office work and writing reports and doing paperwork. And I probably haven't written a paper in 20 years. Yeah. And much less doing it on a computer. I've always done handwritten stuff. So I don't know all the little shortcuts very well. And there's so many different discrepancies on what I'm being told, how I'm being told to do things. And I'm just like, good Lord, I don't know how people do this for a living all the time. And it's like, I like the job. But the thing is, if I would have gone to college and got a degree in something, most jobs that are just like this are, what would want me to have a degree. If you would have gone for like someone like me, if I would have gone to a trade school, may have ended up in a manufacturing facility doing something, but then there's also a possibility where I could be at a kind of 9 to 5 job, maybe work weekends every now and then, that I do some sort of machinist work or whatever, or you do something on your own eventually, which is no saying that I couldn't, but as far as having all the knowledge and tools of the trades and the experience, it's hard to get back at this point, like you said, when you have to provide as well. And to take that big step to do something like that, because like where I'm at now, like I said, the benefits are great. And within the next 6 months, I'll be at or where I was before where I left. So that was a big selling point. I'm like, all right, I'm gaining a lot as far as freedom, but I was losing a little bit of money, but only for maybe a year. So it wasn't, that hard of a jump as far as that goes, just a little bit tighter for a little while. But yeah, definitely I'm going to work on some more stuff on the side to learn just because I've found I've been a little more productive mechanically in the evenings now because I'm not working on shit all day long. And so I'm like, all right, I want to go do something. Let's go do something. I can't sit here any longer. Let's go. So I'm like, I'm either on the road, going somewhere, doing something, working on something. So I am like, I'm, I get tired of sitting in an office.
Yeah. Well, and I can say, from an outside looking in perspective, if if you want it, is I feel like it's been great for you. I definitely, you and I chat,
Yeah.
throughout the week, and sometimes the change is what you need. I'm exhausted every day when I get done. So I'm kind of the opposite. I get up in the morning, and it's like if I could start work at 11, I would get so much done on my car and the house and everything else, and then I would still get all my work done for work because I'm so motivated in the morning. But by the time I've been in back-to-back meetings until 5:30 in the afternoon, and then I get done with everything and, maybe I took lunch and ran to the gym or something, but a lot of times I'm not even doing that. When I
Right.
get done, I haven't physically done anything at
Well,
work, but I am absolutely exhausted. And,
well,
and that's like that's a me thing, but I'm definitely not as productive as I could be. And it's temporary.
right.
Um, but it's kind of like with you where, like the salary is going to level out. Like for me, it's just getting the workload to level out, right? And getting to a place where, I know what to expect throughout the day and it's not so draining because it's not back to back fires or different things.
Well,
And like I said, I love it. And so it's weird to be in the situation where I'm working a lot, tired, maybe frustrated some days, but then at the end of it, like I'm very thankful. But I still always want to be working on my photography on the side and other things that it's like, okay, if I ever ended up in a situation where I have to do something to provide for my family because a job didn't work out or whatever, I always want to know I have those options, like you said.
so that was one part when I did this. I was like, all right, maybe I'll just go, which I still might do it, try to do online classes and get just like a business degree. So I have something. But then I'm like, I can take all this time and money and then be in there writing reports and doing whatever bullshit I got to do for getting whatever degree I want to do. And I have no desire to be writing papers at all. And but hold on. My thought is, I'm like, all right, these jobs that I could possibly get that would make decent money with whatever said degree are probably doing shit that I'm going to be bored as hell doing when I'm like, man, I wish I would have just gone and done something like this where I could be doing something that's not as hard on my body, but enjoyable for me. That's not making me write papers all the fucking
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I always tell like my guys at work and my kids, it's like if it was fun, they wouldn't have to pay you to come and do it if it was
That's
fun
true.
all the time. And so, I mean, there's a level like work's always going to be work. I mean, I know guys that race every weekend, and obviously I don't get to do that, but they also they're mechanics full time, and like they hate cars more than any of the rest of us, I think. And that's back to your earlier point. Like I don't know if you remember back. I remember as a teenager and early 20s, man, those and maybe it's just because I don't have cable anymore. I do the YouTube TV now, but those was it UTI Tech or
Well, yeah,
something
yeah,
Tech commercials, man, those things were on, especially if you're watching Speed Network and like that.
like
Those
NASCAR
commercials were on
tech.
all the time. It was like, come be a motorcycle technician, come be, and come out of our program with a, guaranteed job at a dealership or something, and they had all these things.
You don't want to
And
work
I
in a
remember
dealership.
thinking, man, that sounds really awesome. I'm gonna go and and then you really start looking into it and it's like, do I really want to do that? Like I just fought with a heater core in my '86 Trans Am for the last 4 hours. Do I really wanna have to go do that for a living somewhere?
Yep.
Which, speaking
Yep.
of that, I think the heater core on my daughter's '97, Sierra is leaking. She was saying she had some wetness in the but dude, I it's super easy on those trucks.
Really?
Yeah, 'cause the box is under the dash on the passenger side right there, and there's 4 or 7, like, the 7 millimeter screws, and the plastic bottom cover of the box comes off, and the heater core is right there, and it just pokes through the firewall right there. Like, it's probably a 30-minute job if if it's cool because, and whereas my Firebird, I was 17 and, ordered the heater core from Summit and was like, "Oh, it's not gonna be a problem at all," and I think I had my grandparents' garage tied up all day. You getting down into the dash and, trying to take that thing out of there. It was a pain.
The heater core went out of my Trans Am when I was 16, and I've still never fixed it. So that is on my to-do list.
Nice. Now, speaking of to-do lists, though, so I got out and messed with the idle on my car. It's still not perfect. I think,
Yeah,
I've still got some issues with the IAC, with the new intake, right? Like it's cutting off a good bit, like pulling up the lights and stuff like that still. But I thought I had it fixed. I do think I'm getting a little bit of low voltage on the alternator too, which that alternator's, been on there since I
I
did
don't
the
want to
swap,
talk
which it
about it.
doesn't have a lot of miles on it. It's just sat
I
a lot.
don't want to talk.
But got that done, checked everything else, nut and bolt check, drove it around town a couple days, and like I said, and like you told me to do, and everybody told me to do, it's like just go enjoy the car. And I spent 2 days. I drove it to the gym, drove it to Waffle House, had dinner, and then Monday night was the Camaro and Firebird cruise in at Summit in McDonough, and so me and a couple other folks we loaded up, and I drove it. 65 miles or whatever it is from here to Summit, there and back. And she did great, other than she rides a little rough at about 70 mile an hour with that drag pack on there, but
Yeah.
it just hops a little bit, is what it is. But it was a successful trip, man. Got some great photos. I'll post. I posted a few, I think, on the group, but I'll post some more on the High Octane Dads Facebook group. But yeah, we had a good time, man. And some friends of mine that we drove up together. Guys got his wife. They swapped LS swapped a Subaru BRZ. He took it to LS Fest last year. I think you met him briefly, and so they had an unfortunate event where a lady pulled out in front of her and it just tore the front clip all up. And so they just finished rebuilding it and they drove it up to Summit. I think he had really gotten the kinks worked out of it like 2 days prior. And
Excellent.
then my friend John, he drove his little blue Toyota mini truck up there with
All
the
right.
turbo LS in it.
Yeah.
So that's a 10-second truck, man. I think
Yeah.
we detoured to Mexico a little bit on the way to Summit. Some
No,
Hellcat feelings were hurt.
no, we're good. No, one of my friends locally, I did talk with him one time about possibly coming on, so that could be fun. So he's got I don't know the generation breakdowns, but it's like a late '80s, early '90s, 2-wheel drive extended cab Toyota pickup or Toyota Tacoma. I don't know when they started calling them, but anyways, little Toyota pickup, and it's got a 6-liter LS T56,
Yeah, John's the T56.
and then he also has a couple Teslas, and I think he recently just bought, or his wife just bought a Corolla GR, which I really like those.
Oh, those are cool.
Those are cool.
Yeah.
So, but to me, I'd like to get with them one day, and I've never really ridden in a Tesla or experienced anything about them. I don't know what models his are because I don't. They all look the
Is
same
it
to me.
is it
Unless
Justin?
no, not Justin, but Justin, he
I know
lives about an
Justin has a
hour.
Tesla.
Yeah, Justin lives about an hour and a half from me.
Yeah, we gotta get Justin to come hang out. Well, go ahead, finish what you were
He's a
saying, and
big
then I'll
Pontiac guy. He's
yeah.
got a lot of cool shit. Yeah, that would definitely be a good one. But no, I'd kind of like to get with him because literally he lives like 2 or 3 miles behind me, and I pass his house a couple times a week. Sometimes I'll stop in front of his house, do burnouts. One time I didn't know it. He had like a carport thing out there. I mean, it's hot. He's got a hot tub out there. And I didn't know it. I just had to come over the hill in the Caprice, and I just stopped in the middle of the road, and I looked over at his house. He's out there in the hot tub doing that. So I took off, just had to let him have it. But no, I'd like to kind of have some firsthand experience, but kind of like get some feedback from someone who has both and who enjoys both sides of it, and kind of, you know, I'd like to get some feedback on that. Like I know Justin's big on them.
Yeah, yeah. I made a comment in the group chat one day about it, just being,
Yeah, just
snarky and
checking.
cutting up in the group chat, and I think, he said something back, and but, the greatest, the meme that I've seen about the electric cars that I think does sum it up is like, I can cook a steak faster in a microwave too. It doesn't mean it's gonna be better,
Right.
you know? Tesla, they're fast. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And we've got a friend, he's a sales manager at a local Cadillac dealer here, and he posted the other day, he came home with one of those Hummer EVs. And I remember when they announced the Hummer EVs, I was like, okay, I'd probably drive one of those because some of the stuff that they can do, like with the four-wheel steering and all that, they can like crab walk sideways and stuff. Like there's a lot of
That's
neat
pretty
stuff.
cool.
But then my mind also goes to that's a lot of stuff to tear up. And maybe that's just me getting like my dad or getting older because he'd always, even with four-wheel drive trucks, he's like, you don't want four-wheel drive. That's just more stuff to tear up. It's just more components under there to tear up. And I mean, he's not wrong, but
Yeah.
you know, that's um, that's definitely one thing to think about with those, but it looks pretty cool.
I
But,
honestly haven't looked into them, but
I just remember watching the announcement, and it's like they're showing it like coming up a hill and then they're like at some rocks or something. They're like hill climbing with it or something. And so all four wheels turn at an angle and it like moves diagonally and then they can straighten up and you can drive out. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Maybe some folks will actually be able to parallel park if they have that. I don't know. But yeah, it's speaking of Justin though. So I went to the summit cruise, and he had messaged, that he knew some friends in the area or whatever. I'm there, and in the group chat, I get a picture of my car with a lady standing in front of it with a Trans Am shirt on. Well, I'm wandering around, I'm taking pictures and stuff. I finally busted the camera out after a thorough search of the ding and dent area at the summit, and went and grabbed my camera and I'm taking pictures and stuff. And I'm taking pictures of the Bandit Trans Am that's parked right next to me. And these man and a woman and their son are standing next to my car and they're talking. And she was pointing something on her dash and was telling her son about it. She turned around. She said, "We're in your way." I said, "No, that's my car. If you have any questions about it or whatever." She goes, "Oh, are you Justin's friend?" And then we got to talk. So he had told them to go find my car,
it's pretty cool.
and so we talked about him a little bit, and how they knew him and the cars they had, and they apparently have a lot of cool stuff too, and they're near like the Atlanta area. But she told me something because I think she said hers was in '85, and there I had noticed because I took my dash off the other week when I was doing the wiring for the tack and everything. There's one dummy plate. So you've got where the defroster is, you've got the hatch release, and there's like a plate where a button could go on the dash. It's like there's nothing there. And she said on my 85, there's a button there. And it was for a factory subwoofer. I never knew that there was, as much as I've read about third gens or heard about, I never knew that in 85 you could get a factory subwoofer in the Trans Am.
I had an 85 that I bought as a parts car when I was in high school for $100. Actually, I ended up paying $50 for it, but anyway.
Well, used to people would pay you to take them at
Yeah,
one
pretty
point in time.
much. And I mean, honestly, I should have paid him to take it, but anyway. Or he should have paid me to take it. It had a lot of weird stuff like that. Uh, but I will say, so my Trans Am's in '86. I have I do not have a hatch release button. Mine has a blank. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I've got a defroster, rear defroster, and that's it.
How do you not have a hatch release?
I don't know. There's no hatch release, and I can get a picture of it. Yeah, there's no hatch release button.
So mine's not working. Like it works, but you have to hold the button.
Yeah, it's just probably dirty contacts or something inside the switch.
Which, yeah, and I've told you there's several little electrical gremlins rearing their head. So my blinkers aren't as bad as I thought. I think I told you like I thought both flashed when I had my left blinker on. Like the blinkers are working. The only thing I've noticed since I swapped the flasher, most everything looks good. The right blinker literally alternates blinker, reverse lights, blinker, reverse lights, and it just goes back and forth. Which is, but I mean, they still know where I'm going, so
So
it's
I've
still
had
doing better than the
issues with my
BMWs.
signals ever since I did my swap. And I put a new battery in a few weeks ago and I've been driving it a lot more. And now the signals kind of work like they're supposed to. But if I have my headlights on, they don't work.
Now that you mention it, I tested them with the headlights off, but that one day that I told you I thought when I turned the left blinker on, both rear lights blinked. I may have had the headlights on when I thought so. I need to go and really do a thorough, just like walk around it and see what it's
Yeah,
doing. But I mean, it's just such a weird thing to diagnose.
it is. And like, to be honest, there's not a lot to the lighting harness to those cars. Everything runs down the driver's side, like to the rear and to the front. I don't know. I've thought about pulling it all out and seeing if I can order connectors and then like build my own thing or,
Mhm.
but I'm because I want to replace all the sockets. That could be some of my issues that I'm having as well. Some of the sockets could be bad or just bad wiring because like I patched places in the floor of that car and put subframe connectors in it. I know the floor's gotten hot. I could have, there could be little kinks or, chafed wire somewhere that I'm not seeing. Plus at this point, they're 40 years old. So mine was built, I think, in April of '85. So, but it's an '86 model.
Gosh, if they're 40, it means we're not far from it.
Yeah. But
But
no,
no,
I mean,
that's my plan really is to really get out and enjoy mine too, and that's what I've been
yeah,
trying to do. Like, I had planned to drive it to the gym today, but ended up not going. On my lunch break, I ended up
yeah.
cutting grass, but
Well, I ended up driving mine to David's house the other day, and we did some diagnosing on his Corvette. And on the way home, I had to stop at Target, and then it was getting dark, and I was like, "Fuck!" And so I'm having like motor or relay issues with my headlight motors, so they don't work right now. So I had to go out there and I had a little screwdriver and just put it in and like turn those little motors up. It makes me feel like such a poor, but
I've been very lucky, knock on wood, with those with mine. Like, I haven't had any
yeah.
issues with them.
Well, I think a lot of my issue, like they always worked great. And then it was at some point when I pulled a small block out of the car, then it sat in storage. It sat in my mom's yard for like a year. And then I put it in a storage building for like a year and a half. And then I bought my house and then it was inside. And then like that same year or that, because I bought the house in like October and like, so that winter into the next year was when I was doing all my work to it. And I ended up, once I started putting power to stuff is when I started finding things weren't working right. And I don't know if it was just from sitting. And then I've had some intermittent times over the years where it sat some. And then like right now, my taillights will light up. My third brake light works, but my brake lights won't work. But I've had the switch out of the car and I've played with it and I can manually, play with the brake switch. The lights work, put it all back and make sure it's adjusted. It's moving the switch and then it don't work. So I'm going to have to dick with it some more. And I always
Yeah.
find the hottest days of the year to get in underneath the dash of that thing and try to work on it.
Yeah. I noticed mine, the 3rd brake light was, like, seemed good, and then sometimes it would be flickering, and that could just be a bulb because I don't know, because my wife noticed it too while we were in the car because she rode with me a little bit last weekend, but I don't know if it was all the brake lights or if it was just the 3rd brake light that was doing that, so
I know my reverse lights have never worked in the 21 years that I've owned that car.
really.
I put
Mine
bulbs
doing the
in it.
blinkers on.
I put I put bulbs in them a couple times trying it, and then when I put the 6-speed in the car, I went through and checked all the wiring, hooked everything up like all the diagrams told me to hook it up to the 6-speed, and they still don't work. So one day I'll diagnose it. But coming to the headlight motor issue. So I don't know if you've really researched them a whole lot. Ours being an '86 or the last year that style motor,
Of course.
and '87 and up changed, and those are the ones you always hear about. Take people putting like nylon bushings in them or whatever. So ours are different. They're actually a pretty robust design. They work pretty well.
Mhm.
Our issue is the relay setup they have. There's 3 different relays for our headlights. And there is,
Like, one for the light, one for the motor, and
yeah, I can't remember exactly, but and I think one of the relays or something, that exact same thing isn't manufactured anymore. And so people have had to like figure out and your own relay bullshit to make stuff work. And I'm like, oh goddamn. I was like, I'm gonna go through all this trouble trying to make this shit work. And then these old ass motors aren't gonna be any fucking good. And so I'm like, what do I do? I mean, do I change it to the newer stuff? Or I mean, I honestly, that is my weakness for the whole third gen shit. I really don't, when I get into stuff that I really don't know like that and I don't want to deal with, I just don't
don't.
deal with it.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of
It's
let it
always worked for
snowball.
me.
And then until eventually I'm like, this is really bothering me.
Mhm.
And I don't, yeah, I don't know what to do with it.
Yep. No, I've definitely been there for sure.
And, but as far as the, like, one thing I think we've talked about before, the third brake light thing. You know, the 86 was the only year with that high mount light. And when I was a kid, I hated it. I'm like, oh, it's so goofy looking. And then when I started swapping the car and I got a little bit older, I'm like, you know what? These are the only year cars that had that brake light. Yeah, it's goofy, but you see more of the cars that don't have it. I'm like, so I ended up finding another glass, put it on there with one. And then Robert Spermelli, he's got the orange, really clean orange Trans Am. His is an 86 as well. And it was his first car. And him and his brother would be good ones to have on. They're badass car guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they post all kinda cool stuff.
But his was an 86 and he pulled the glass off and put a 85 hatch on it. And he still had his original third brake light though. So we were talking one time years ago, and I think he sent me his original third brake light for like cost of shipping or whatever, because I was like, look, I want to try to find as many of these housings as I can, because eventually they're going to
Before
be
you
hard to
can't.
find. Right? They're going to be hard to find, and most people hated them, tossed them or whatever. So if I can find them free or cheap or whatever, I'll try to grab them.
Yeah, that's like I got a buddy locally, he's got a set of, GTA emblems and the birds and everything, and he was like, "These have literally been kicking around from a GTA I had in my toolbox." And I took some pictures of his car, and he was like, "You want them?" I was like, "Yeah. I
Hell
mean,
yeah,
I'll put them up, wrap them up, and
yeah,
you never know."
yeah.
It's like, mine's not a GTA, but I always wanted a GTA. Who's to say I won't buy one day? And I'll be glad to have them. Or somebody will come along and have a GTA and need them. I reached out to Jay Gross. I don't know if you saw he posted. So he's got that GTA and it's all black now. And I was like, I can't remember if you said you wanted red emblems or he was like, no, I have red ones. I'm trying to get rid of. I'm trying to find some that are blacked out or whatever. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, well then I
So
can't help you. But
on your car, I don't know if you remember right off, on the center panel between your taillights, what color is the bird?
silver or is it just
And
black?
and is it like a printed thing or is it like a logo, like a emblem?
I feel like it's, like, inset into the center section. It's not like a decal, I don't
Okay.
think. Now that you're asking me, I can't picture it, but I have pictures of the car I recently took. Let me see. But, that's like I know on the sail panels, they're decals. My tail light inside the grids inside my tail light are delaminating on the right side, and I thought, "Oh, okay. I'll find a replacement tail light."
Good luck.
Holy cow.
I
Yeah,
know a guy.
not a good thing to be looking for.
If you know somebody, I know a guy. Um, he's got a whole bunch of the pairs of or used to, allegedly, have a whole bunch of pairs of the 91, 92 lights that are the two piece.
Mhm.
Those have gotten dumb. They're like $1,000 a set or more.
Well, I watched a tutorial of a guy who took a set apart and masked them off, and basically he peeled all the, like, where it's
Delaminated.
laminated on there and, like, painted it,
Right.
to have the grids, and, I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but, like, cutting into that light and everything, like, I don't because then if it's not right, the replacement is I think if I had another set to put on the car or some sort of tail light to put on the car so I could at least drive it, I'd be more apt to, maybe take that project on.
Well, anyways, the only reason I was asking because my car has so I've got an extra set of taillights. And I bought a well, when I bought a quarter panel for my car off of a car in the junkyard years ago. I think it was like an 87. And while I was there, I'm like, ooh, these taillights are in like mint condition. They were not delaminating or anything. So I joinked them. And like I bought a quarter panel, taillights, like the factory aluminum spare, and some other little knickknacks, and I was out of there for like 120 bucks. It was great. But I ended up, I was looking at the taillights. The taillights are the same, but the center section was different. So the one that came with the lights I got from the car in a junkyard, the center panel is smooth and it's got like I think it's a silver inlay bird.
I'm
It's
pretty
just
sure
like,
that's what mine is.
it's
I
like,
just sent you a picture.
okay, well, but it's smooth and Let's see if I can pull it up here. But my Trans Am, the factory lights on it are a it's got like a indention on the centerpiece, and it's got like an orange bird emblem.
I'd have to go there and look. Mine's definitely like a silver or white.
Yeah, yeah, I see it. I'm looking at it now.
I'm trying to remember, but I'm fairly sure it's all just solid across there. It's not like there's not like an
Yeah,
indentation
smooth.
or anything on it.
Yeah, so
But now that you ask me, like I said, without walking out there, I can't say for sure, but I'm fairly certain
yeah,
that's the
that's
case.
what it looks like. Like I said, I've got one like that, and I was like, "Oh, see, the issue is mine." At the very top of it, like you'll pull the hatch up, and there's like a top lip for the headlights because they're just like rectangles. On top of that centerpiece, there's nothing that supports it. So mine's got a big chunk of the plastic that just broke off.
I think
I'm
mine does
like,
too.
fuck.
It's like
Which,
somebody sat something there and then maybe shut the deck lid or
yeah,
something and just popped the little corner off of
yeah,
that plastic there.
and it was probably me on mine. But I mean, I've also had the taillights off of mine before, and like I went through and cleaned them and like polished them out. And then one time I tinted them, which at this point I'd rather just polish them out, but mine are delaminating on the inside as well. But the other set that I bought are not. But they've been on my shelf for years now because I'm like, there's no point in me putting them on the car, let them sit outside and get
And then
baked.
them to start to
And then when I don't have the car painted or anything like that, so they're just on the shelf waiting.
well, it's like I've got a spare dash pad that's perfect.
Yeah.
And
God.
I wanna say it got something on it, like, we had it in storage, and I went over there, and there was, like, something on it, but it's not cracked or anything like that, so I think it could be clean. But dad called me, I mean, it's probably been 10 years ago at this point, and he's like, "Hey, this guy at work, he's got this, Firebird dash pad. Do you want it?" And he sent me a picture, I was like, "No, mine's perfect." But he didn't send me a picture of it. I just said, "No, mine's in perfect shape, I don't really need one." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he sent me the picture of it, and he goes, "Well, this is it. Is that like yours?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "It looks to be in pretty good shape." He goes, I mean, the guy said 20 bucks if you want it. I was like, get it. Get it right now. Come, I'll meet you with the cash. And
Yeah.
and I bought it just because it was $20 and now I had a dash pad in case anything ever happened to mine. But um and I've still got it in storage. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's until you do some of the other stuff or you need it,
Yeah.
why put it on there?
Yeah. That's the only thing I hate. I'm like, man, it's been hanging around. And it's like, oh, we need to go and do this to your car. I'm like, "Ugh, I know. Add to the list."
Well, when I took mine apart recently, working on the tactics of just taking the dash off the radio bezel, I've always had the crack right in the bottom of the radio bezel, right below where the radio is. But when I pulled it apart this last time, it cracked in the middle and cracked on the side. So like it'll all go back on there, but it's definitely got cracks in it. And so that leads me to something that we don't need to talk about tonight, but something I'd be curious if any of the folks that listen to are into, and something my ADHD hyperfixation is getting me back onto is the 3D printing thing. I think instead of fighting with this secondhand 3D printer that I bought that gave me so much trouble, I'm just going to buy one.
Yeah.
um, because little things like that radio bezel, and like I went on some of the websites where you can get 3D files and found like um, several little bits for third gens and things that people have done up and scanned and have files for. And it almost makes me wonder, like, out in the heat, depending on what you were
Depends on which
printing
type of
with.
plastic you're using.
Right. So you can print ABS plastic, you can print, there's some carbon fiber filaments you can get. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but you mentioned in that third brake light dome for the 86s, like that's something that seems to me would be pretty easy to design and then print a replacement if you
Mhm.
absolutely had to. And so I just want it's like a lot of things. I don't want to have to go to somebody. I want the capability to go do it myself. If I want to get a new radio bezel, if I want to do, a housing to put different gauges on, like to be able to just take a CAD file or STL file and print it would be great. There were guys at LS Fest. I don't know if you saw their booth or not, because I know you were racing with the Grand Champion stuff. You were pretty busy, but there was a booth down near the end of vendor row and they were printing dash components for different cars. And he showed me some pictures of some third gen stuff that they had done. And they had a 3D printer sitting on the table and they were printing this stuff. And I was like, it's absolutely doable. And when you're in a pinch or you need a small part, I even found a printable, like one of the flywheel lock tools that when
Okay.
it's on the engine stand to be able to lock the flywheel in place. I mean, 30, $40 to buy one of those sometimes. And just, yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to print it with PLA and it might only last 1 or 2 times, but what's it gonna cost me? You know, an hour or 2 of print time and 45 cents worth of filament.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's a
definitely
guy
want to
that
be
I
able to do that.
work with who's actually starting to do some 3D printing stuff, kind of for as like a hobby, but he's thinking about starting like a little side business. And so, I mean, that would be cool. I've actually thought about some things as well as far as 3D printing, but I just don't have any desire to add anything else to me. Another expensive hobby.
Well, that's why, like, I'm gonna probably the printer that I've got. I think I paid $200 for it secondhand, and I've tweaked it, and it's a hobbyist printer, meaning that like getting that printer to work is almost a hobby. The stuff you print is not as much hobby as like tweaking the printer and figuring out and getting it dialed in just right. And I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I was looking at there's a couple companies that make some really good out of the box printers, and they're you can catch them on sale right now for like $400 to $500. It's like okay, depending on the with some of the things that I'd like to print, some of the stuff for the OBS project, like the little where the radio controls go in the stock
Hmm.
OBS, right? Like you can print there's a file you can get, and you can print a housing for the Holly 3.5-inch screen. Just several little things that you can do with it, with that pocket, and like to be able to print some of that stuff, like spend 400 or $500 to be able to do it would be pretty cool. I'm probably gonna end up getting
Yeah.
one. I told my wife, I was like, Father's Day, if you really want to buy something, like, I'm not asking her to spend 400 or $500 on Father's Day, but like, I can go
Right.
and buy
Help
that
me
and
out
chip
with it.
in towards that or something. Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to be able to make some of my own, and I do have some ideas for things that would be cool for like third gen guys and stuff that we could
Yeah.
print, and we need to set up like a Shopify site because I sent you 3 or 4 t-shirt design ideas,
Hmm.
High Octane Dads that I've got kicking around. I got a hat idea, and I really thought about it'd be cool, and this is just me musing, but if anybody be interested, like doing a pre-sale on like some shirts and do like a the first 30 shirts or something like that. Like we'll do like a limited run first edition, like OG supporter shirt or something like that. And then if we ever hit, say, like 1,000 subscribers or something, we'll do a giveaway for all those people that have that first edition shirt or that placed an order, or we'll do something for every person that bought one of those kind of thing. Like do like a short run and just never print that shirt design again, or,
Yeah.
or do the shirt design but add something extra to it, like first 100 or something like that. So
Right.
I don't know. I think it'd be cool. But
Number the
if we had some
shirts or something. That'd be kind of a lot because that'd be a new design for every shirt. That wouldn't be really
for what now?
like if you numbered the shirts like one of
Oh yeah.
100. Like, that's cool, but it's like all right, then you got to make a new logo more
Mhm.
so. That wouldn't be hard to do, but it's
No,
tedious.
it would take no time, but the printer would hate you. The guy who was printing the shirts for us. And I do have a local guy that I can talk to. I don't know him personally, but I know him through somebody else. And then definitely want to get some stuff like that going. Not like to make a killing on it or anything like that, but just I think it'd be cool to be out somewhere and see somebody with a High Octane Dad shirt on, as much as I like getting the pictures of people's radio with our logo on it.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been trying to hit up a lot more events the last several weeks, and I've gone to some decent cars and coffees. I went to one this past weekend with a lot of higher end cars. It was pretty cool in a very different area that I'm usually in. So, and I've been like popping a little box up on the car with all our little QR code stickers.
So I put a stack of our stickers on the little cubby area, in the hood's pop right there by the headlights of my car, and I think a few people grabbed them. They were the ones that I had the local guy do, where they cut a little too deep into the paper, so they're kind of hard to peel. But I have 100 of them, so I was like, I'm just going to set them out there if people want them. And the a few folks grabbed them, and I'm definitely going to keep doing that and going to Cars and Coffee. It's about 30 miles away. I'm going to drive the car down there this time and take my camera and stuff to I've got to get better about like when I'm there, like recording some stuff. Cause like if somebody walked to me and told me to ask me to talk about my car, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like people want to talk about their stuff, but I guess I am still in that awkward stage. Like for me and you, if we have a guest on here, that's awesome. When I'm out in public and it's like, okay, I'm going to record somebody else's stuff, it still just feels really awkward.
It does.
And I want to get over that because there's so many cool cars, especially like this Cars and Coffee that I'm planning to go to in a week or a week from Saturday. There's some really cool ones out there, and they're doing a car show this Saturday called Dream Rides or something. And it's a lot of import stuff, I think. But I mean, there's definitely some Supras and other things that come out to it. There's one guy that's got a Skyline that's done up like, Brian's car from Fast and Furious, the
Oh,
gray
okay.
one with the blue
Yeah.
underglow and all that.
Those R34.
Yeah, it's super. I've seen it in person, and they use it as, like, the cover photo for the car show that's going on this Saturday. Me and Crystal might ride down to that. I don't know if I'll take the car there, but I'm gonna definitely take the camera, and, yeah, I just, love to hear about how people build their stuff and what they're working on, so need to
Yeah,
do
that's
more of that and then figure out, like, a T-shirt thing and get some of that going because if nothing else I know you've got some High Octane Dad shirts. I've gotta, I gotta step my
yeah,
game
mom
up.
yeah, mom made me a couple when we first started, but they're off of our original logo, and so it's got one here and then just a big version on the back, that's it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's pretty basic, but I wear usually what I've been doing, any type of show or anything I go to, that's the shirt that I wear.
Yeah. Now I had my High Octane Dad socks on, so shout out to Chris for
Yeah,
that.
hell
I had
yeah.
those on when I went to Summit. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I usually rotate them in at least once a week. Well, sometimes because they are a little thin, but
Yeah,
they
they're
were
definitely
kind
more
of
like a dress sock kinda thing.
yeah, they were definitely a trial run. I was just like, I want to see what we can how it'll turn out. And I'd love to find one that's done on like an actual like thicker sock.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd sent it to you, but I had bought a pair of the summer shandy socks from Duluth.
You did, yep.
And that's how they are. They're like, they're like a woven sock and it's kind of like, I guess, embedded in it, like the the threads or whatever threading is different in those areas, which is pretty cool. But I'm sure that adds a lot to it,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah,
probably has to be a little more basic.
funny dad story right before we go. So, my son had his Science Olympiad competition a few weeks ago, and, I packed, like, the day before and everything, and I know, you pack underwear and the meme is true, like, I'm gonna pack underwear like I'm gonna, crap my pants 4 times a
Every day.
day for the next 3 days or whatever. We were literally up there for one night, but I got there, we're getting ready for the next morning, and I realized I have a pair of socks, and it's the ones on my feet. Well, then my son flooded the bathroom, like, not flooded it back, but, like, it was coming out of the shower. He didn't have the shower curtain all the way in, like, on the back, and it was a tiny shower and a lot of water pressure, and so it was running
Oh
out, and so
no.
the water got about that deep right next to the shower. Well, I walked in there to brush my teeth, and now my socks are soaking wet.
Yeah.
And I was like, "It's fine. I got more socks for tomorrow." But I didn't. And
No.
so now I am the proud owner of a pair of Cheez-It socks and a pair of Mountain Dew socks because the only place open around the hotel was Walgreens
Yeah.
because it's midnight. The only socks they had were these like crazy socks, and it was in like the novelty aisle. And thankfully, I even found those where I was like, well, I'd be just going sockless the next day. But
Oh my God.
yeah, it was a interesting trip, and spent the night sopping up water with towels in a hotel bathroom, trying to
Uh,
not get my
that's always a
damage
lot of fun.
deposit taken.
One of my previous coworkers, we went on a trip to Ohio last year, and we were rooming together, and we had went out to dinner and all. And we come back a little late, and I went. He's like, "I'm gonna take a shower." I'm like, "All right." I'm laying in the bed, heard water running, heard water running. I said, "Damn, is he taking a bath?" And you just hear the water filling. So, dude must be taking a bath. And then I heard what sounded like somebody slipping. And then I heard splash and thump. And then I heard him giggling. And I'm like, well, he's giggling. I heard him moving around. So he's all right. I never even asked him if he was all right. Well, in the middle of the night, I woke up, had to use the bathroom. And I went in the bathroom, used the bathroom, looking around. I'm like, damn, this hotel floor is really fucking clean. They did a good job cleaning this bathroom. And I'm like, huh. And then I was looking, and in the tub, he had the towel in the tub, but it was like rolled up to where it was like lengthwise, and it was rolled up real tight, laying in the middle of the tub, and it was wet. And I'm like, well, whatever.
Mhm.
Well, the next morning we were talking. He was like, "Did you hear me fall down last night?" I was like, "What do you mean fall down?" He goes, "I fell in the shower." I said, "That's what that noise was." He goes, "You heard me and didn't come check on me?" He goes, "I could have Bob Sageted myself in here." So what he was saying, he was in the shower and he didn't realize he had stepped back and it had the drain that like you had to push with your foot or whatever.
Mm.
And he had bumped it. and the water started filling up. He goes, I figured that something was whatever, and he goes, I thought it was clogged. And he goes, I was just finishing doing what I was doing. He goes, and I stepped, he said he was, I think, facing the shower head, and he stepped back and he hit that part of the tub where it started going up. And the water, he said at this point was like in the middle of his shins. So when he slipped and he fell, he was like, whoa, and all the water went out of the tub on the
Wow.
floor. And he said, so what he did is I got out and rolled the towel up. It was like mopping it all up.
That's
And so,
exactly what I did.
yeah. And so I was like, that's why the bathroom floor was so clean. You mopped it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got a free bathroom scrubbing out of us too, because it was like I said, it wasn't terrible, like, the
Yeah.
amount of water, but it was like, "I've gotta get this water up, I can't leave it there," and so, yeah, I went through about 3 towels, like, kinda put it in one corner, and you just work the water towards it, let it soak it up as much as you can, wring it out in the tub, and just kept doing that until all the water was up, and yeah, the floor all got very clean.
Well,
That's, yeah, I
God.
told my wife, I was like, in the moment, it was like, "This is frustrating," but I will say one thing after, you know, 15 years, 16 years of parenthood, right, is I I definitely realized in the moment, this isn't the worst thing that could be happening right now, and it's gonna be a hilarious story to tell later, and especially to, like, his first girlfriend and, that, we took him up for Science Olympiad and, like, he flooded the bathroom. So, I realized that kind of in the moment, and while I was tired and had to go get socks and, other things, it was, we were able to laugh about it instead of being frustrated by it, and I think, if we could all learn to recognize that in the moment that, a lot of this shit is not as serious as we make it out to be, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be okay,
Well,
you know?
and if you want to leave it off after this, I can't remember which comedian said it, but I just remember them always saying, real shit is the funniest. When I'm sitting there telling, they were like, oh, this is a real story, and they'd go on. I said, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, real shit is always the funniest in the end. It
And
may
that's
not be great when it happens, but looking back, it's like, yeah, that was pretty stupid.
I don't know if he's the one that said it, but there's that guy, he runs the Wrecking Yard podcast, and he's a stand-up comedian, it's Jerry Wayne Longmire. I think I've
Okay.
told you about him before. He's long hair, just and his whole podcast is just him talking, and it's usually, I mean, I think maybe he does guests, I don't know. If he does, I'll go hang out with him, we can go hang out with him, that'd be awesome, but no, again, stand-up comedian and just super down to earth guy. And he tells stories about growing up and like him and his dad and cars they had and stuff like that. He's the one that does those videos. It's like the truck astrology, and he'll like post like a 97 F-150, and he'll be like, you know, this guy's been with the same woman for the last 25 years. He's got something about like what kind of guy drives that particular truck and stuff. And
Right.
they're hilarious reels. And that's how I found him and then started listening to his podcast. Um, yeah, that sounds like something he would say, because most of his stories, most of the stuff he tells, like it's just his life, and stuff that he's done. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna see what I can find. But no, yeah, I mean that's kind of all I've got.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap it there, and then we're gonna try to do some more recording this week. By the time we release this, if we release it on Saturday, maybe we'll release early. I don't know. Don't hold me to it. I'll have it edited because Riverside's so damn fast. I'll have that done by tomorrow as far as the edit goes. But Back to the Streets started today. So the Dragon Drive, Matt's competing, Chucky, and a bunch of other folks. They've got a lot more participating this year, it seems like. I mean, of course, they're building the
Yeah,
event. So, but I know they had, I think, all but maybe one car to fill out a whole stick shift class this year. And I know last year I felt like they were really trying to get some stick shift folks in. So
yeah. I only think they had a handful last year. Was the
So
last
that's
one they
super
did.
cool that that they've got that going on. So excited to watch that event. Matt's folks, Motor Mania TV, if you want to watch Back to the Streets, I think they're live streaming the racing and stuff. So that's super cool. And a bunch of the racers are kind of cataloging their journey and making videos and stuff. There's a lot of channels out there, smaller channels that are, doing Back to the Streets this year. I'm sort of pumped about, maybe it's because we went on the Drag Drive Repeat podcast, but they asked, when are you guys going to do a drag and drive? And now that like I know my car will make a 120-mile trip, yeah, the whole time I'm driving, I'm thinking, I built this damn thing. Like I know like something's going to go wrong. It's going to start to overheat. And I mean, it was 198 degrees, the whole way there and back. Did fine. Brakes were good. And so now I've kind of got the confidence. Like they do the one little local drag and drive here. It's just a, you meet one place, they drive to the track, they race, and they do awards. I think I'm at least going to give that one a shot. And I think they're going to try to do a couple this year. So I'm going to at least get
Be cool.
involved in that. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Like I said, I put some mileage on the Trans Am, but I'm having some cooling fan issues, and then I'm going out of town this weekend. So, well,
We need to do a whole thing and talk about that because I'm curious. Like with mine, I'm running stock third gen radiator and stock fans, and mine stays plenty cool. And then like I could go to the LS1 fans, and I have the plugs for the dual fan, but if it's working, like why do I want to change it? You know?
so mine's not. That's the issue. And I've actually went through a handful of those original single style motors, and they burn up or the relays have melted. And it's just, I think it boils down to those motors are pulling too much amps for the single relay that I have set up in this harness. So I've got a standalone harness that was made for these dual fans. I just have to tie it into what I have on the car and remove the single relay setup and add all this shit in. It's just honestly wouldn't take me but a couple hours to get it knocked out. It's just thinking about it when I want to do it and I have
Yeah,
the time to do it.
for sure. Well, we could probably talk about that for another hour, but we'll end it
Yeah.
here. We're a little over an hour now. I think it was ended
Yeah.
up being a little longer than we thought, but
Yeah.
glad
It
we
worked
did it.
out good. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool, cool. Well, good luck to everybody on Back to the Streets. I know, like I said, by the time this airs, they'll be wrapping up or done maybe, but good luck to all those guys. And
We'll definitely talk about it next time.
yeah, for sure. We'll get like a recap and maybe Matt couldn't come on this time before the event, but we'll probably get him on afterwards and he can come tell us how his runs and how everything went for them, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Hell
Good
yeah.
deal. All right. Well, have a good evening, folks.